Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Today we're joined by Emma Rainville, the Wizard of Ops. Emma is a scaling and operations expert helping businesses streamline and grow efficiently. She's a driving force behind several successful ventures, including Shockwave Solutions, Seismic Wave Support, Tidal Wave Media, and Aftershock Coaching, all dedicated to helping businesses optimize, grow, and sustain success. Emma is the best-selling author of Scope, a game-changing book on operational excellence, and she's the co-host of two podcasts, Special Ops with Travis Gomez and Big Chance podcast with Perry Belcher. Her no-nonsense approach and expertise in scaling brands to 8 and 9 figures. She is here with us today to drop practical insights that you can use in your business. Emma, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. The business names that you have used over time in and of themselves talk to being disruptive. And I love everything about the idea of being disruptive with the purpose of making a positive change. So talk to us a little bit about what your focus is today and why it's important now.
Sure. The number one thing for me has been operational excellence by utilizing operational frameworks and foundational frameworks within businesses. Oftentimes, business owners feel so suffocated by the very thing that should bring them legacy and joy because of not having proper operational frameworks in their business to run their business, or an operational foundation, a foundational framework on how they even grow and what they do and what they're here for. And so they end up like a dog chasing their tail, feeling so stressed out with great products that are causing fires every day. So my number one focus, and all of the businesses that I've launched throughout the years, has all been in purpose of creating operational excellence within businesses, specifically in direct response and e-commerce.
Absolutely fabulous. In that you talked a little bit about, owners facing growth, but there's also that part of the equation that is scale. And so starting with foundational frameworks feeds both of those engines. Talk to us a little bit about how you see the difference between growth and scale.
Sure. So I'll back up just for a minute, if you don't mind, and just put out there the number one reason why online businesses go out of business is because they scaled themselves out of money. It wasn't because they weren't getting enough sales. It was because they weren't prepared for the scale and the growth. And so in my opinion, growth is I'm growing. I may grow 1%, I may grow 5%, but it's growing. Scale is aggressively increasing your business's capacity, aggressively increasing your business's revenue, aggressively increasing the services or the products that your business can provide. And that is your number one focus. That is what scale is. Scale is, let's just do this. Growth is, let's go a little year over year and make sure that our margins are healthy. And that's where my brain hits the difference.
Okay. And it's an important distinction. In my practice, we work on an equation that sounds like people plus process times technology equals growth and scale, right? So you can control levers if you put that equation together. And I think that there's a similarity in that foundational need for an operational framework. Mm-hmm. With your clients, I know that with the book, with Scope, and with the work that you do, that you have a core principle called WAVE. What is WAVE and what does it mean? And how do you leverage it?
Sure. WAVE is a foundational framework. It's actually the S in Scope. S in Scope means setting your vision. WAVE is written vision. Where are we trying to go? What is the target? If your people don't understand the target and intimately understand the target, it's very difficult for them to make decisions on your behalf, thereby making you have to micromanage and be involved in every decision. So if I can have a 10-year picture of where we're trying to go, And then I can have milestones that we need to hit over the next 3 and 5 years to make sure we're on track for that. And then 1 year commitments. Notice I don't call them goals. I intentionally call them commitments. What are we committed to accomplish? Goals are things that I hope to do. My goal is to lose 20 pounds this year. My goal is to read 50 books this year. I'm committed to buying a house this year. Which thing do you think is going to get done?
Oh, you're totally buying the house. That commitment, man.
So what are we committed to get done? We don't go home until it's done. What does that look like? And then my team understands what I'm trying to accomplish, and then they can make decisions on my behalf on the day to day, and I'm not needing to be involved in everything because they know where we're going. And then the second part of WAVE is absolute focus. We all have shiny objects syndrome. If you're an entrepreneur and you tell me you don't have shiny object syndrome, either you're not an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, or you're lying, one or the other. There's no such thing as not having it. Entrepreneurs see opportunity everywhere. That's what makes us entrepreneurs. The problem with that is we end up stepping over thousands of dollars to chase pennies because we're throwing wrenches at our team constantly because we're not focused on the one thing, and we're spreading ourselves and our resources too thin. So how do we keep that from happening? And that's by creating absolute focus. The next V is values-driven future. We spend so much time creating an avatar on our customer and don't bother creating an avatar on the people who service our customer on our behalf. Who's working for us? What do they look like? And when I say what do they look like, what values do they have? What's important to them? It might be really important to you as a business owner. For me, proactive problem solver is so important. How many times have you worked with someone and they knew that something was going to go wrong because it wasn't their job? They sat by and did nothing. I'll never work with someone like that, ever. So for me, part of my avatar is they're a proactive problem solver. So I have a very clear understanding of who I'm trying to hire, personality wise and values wise, what drives them. And then it makes the hiring process very easy because then I'm just filling in the skill set. And then finally, execution. Every one of my acronyms ends in E, and they all stand for execution, because a well thought out strategic plan written down is worth toilet paper if there's no execution involved. And so how are we going to achieve the things that we have just said, and how are we going to keep things moving? And that is your foundational framework, which is WAVE.
That is, it's a fabulous, fabulous acronym. And in that, while you were talking about it, I want to go back to something that you said,
Sure.
and then we'll go forward again. But you talked about, entrepreneurs and shiny object syndrome. And if you aren't suffering from shiny object syndrome, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. That's a really important distinction. And I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say it quite like that. But what got you to that distinction?
I spent the first part of my career working with business owners.
Okay.
And then I spent the second half of my career working with entrepreneurs. And they are astronomically different. And I don't think that I ever understood previous to that. I don't think I ever understood. I think I thought all business owners were entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely not the case. An entrepreneur is a completely different animal. They make up a very small percent of business owners. They're extremely hard to work with, but it's an extreme reward to work with them. They mentor better. They manage terrible, but they mentor better than anyone. They can teach you more if you can handle the heat. Perry Belcher says this all the time. I love this saying: you can't stay 70 degrees in a 100-degree room. They keep the room at 100 degrees at all times. So if you can handle the heat, you're going to grow and you're going to excel like nothing you've ever dealt with. A business owner is going to walk in and ask you how your kids are. An entrepreneur doesn't remember you have children. They only remember the thing that they drove into work thinking about launching today. And you have to figure out how to talk them out of that.
And it wasn't one thing, it was 10.
Right.
As soon as it comes out of the mouth.
They forgot 9 of them on the way because they're all ADHD on top of it, right? So.
On top of everything else. And once it's been verbalized in their mind, it is actually complete. And it's like, hey, Emma, why isn't that?
Why isn't that? It's such a great, the amount of times that I've heard my team can't keep up with me. You had a thought. They had to build it. What do you mean? And then, by the way, before they could even figure out what they needed to build it, you came up with 8 more thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I love to play with the power of an idea, but in the hand of an entrepreneur, it's a dangerous thing. Revolutionary, game-changing, absolutely brilliant and powerful, but for the team behind that, it can be, it's a lot.
But a visionary with great ideas that finds an integrator that matches them is
Yeah.
unstoppable. And that's where I come in, and that's what I've been able to accomplish. I've accomplished nothing. I've accomplished other people's things. I speak visionary. And because I speak visionary, I've been very, very successful in my career because they are brilliant human beings. But a visionary with a great idea and no operations will not accomplish anything. An operator with a half-baked idea will crush.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So
put
share
the
with
two
us,
together.
and when you put the right two together, right, magic happens here.
Right.
Um, Share with us a story about, a situation. Start with one that didn't play out well, right? One that was hard and ugly and gruesome.
Oh, wow. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. Okay, obviously I'm going to extract names.
Yes.
Um, One of the first visionaries I ever worked with was beyond brilliant. I mean, his IQ had to be 150. It was insane, but he was insane. And so I spent 3 years, what I felt like was digging my own grave, like just
Yeah.
shoveling and shoveling and shoveling. And I didn't I learned so much. I learned about direct response. I learned about copywriting. I learned about split testing. And in that 3 years that I worked with him, I probably got 20 years experience. And I mean that truly. He was absent a lot of the time, so I had to figure things out. And then he'd come and he'd dump a bunch of things on me. And then he'd be absent again. And he'd teach me just enough so I knew where to look for resources.
Mhm.
But I didn't really, I just, man, what an experience. But in the end, it turned completely disastrous. I had to leave. It made me start my company, actually. It was a complete and utter disaster. He was just as psychotic as he was brilliant, and I'm very fortunate that I had time with the time that I had with him. I look
Mhm.
back at it and think, wow, he made my career really. Just the things he taught me and the positions that he put me in really excelled what I know and what I'm capable of and tested me to my very limits. But man, it was a really long, really hard 3 years. And that's where I learned to navigate the visionary integrator relationship and set boundaries and be able to have respectful debates about what should be done and not just allow them, not that they intentionally would abuse you, but they have 50 ideas that's going to make $1 bazillion, so you've got to hit all of them. And so now I know how to debate and say, hey, look, for the mental health of our team, for the amount of resources that we have, this is what we're capable of doing. How much money you got so I can go buy more resources, or can we put this on the shelf for a while? So I learned how to navigate those things. But that was a really, 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 really hard 3 years.
And and it was the catalyst to going out and starting your own business. What did that aha moment look like for you?
It was my business partner Travis. I had really had enough. I'd really had enough. The emotional toll that it was taking. Like when I resigned and said, okay, we're gonna replace me. I'll stick around for 30 days. And he wrote back like, you a resignation not accepted. You're fired, but your end date is 2 months from now, not 1 month from now. And so it was kind of nutty. I stayed, by the way, and I made sure that everything was all set. I spent a lot of time building the company, but um, it was really just Travis. We had been talking for probably 2 of those 3 years about like really should go into business together. We had been kind of consulting for the same people. We had been brought into many conversations. We problem solved really, really well together. Our synergy was fantastic. Our friendship is strong. And we had probably 8 9 months of conversation, 2 years of conversation, but 8 9 months of serious conversation. And then kind of when the poop hit the fan and I was really, really ready to get out, I was interviewing for a bunch of other companies, and he just kind of looked at me and he's like, how come we just keep making other people rich?
That's a powerful question.
Mm, mm. And our first client landed in our lap, and we filed for our, for our business with the Texas Secretary of State,
Yeah.
and off to the races. We had two clients before we officially opened our doors. So yeah, it was a wonderful, scary time. By the way, it was November 2019, so COVID hit just months later, and we were like, "Oh no, did we make a mistake?" No, we exploded. It was wonderful. It was hard at first, but it was wonderful.
And it is really interesting to have different conversations and talk about 2019 to 2020 and what it did to businesses, and how many consultative type businesses actually grew because those business owners didn't know how to make the shift, and needed help and needed support doing that. All right, so I asked you for the big ugly, which gave us your origin story as an entrepreneur and a business owner in your own right. So that was a good question. But let's talk about a transformation that you've led that was really successful, something that you changed that business for the better.
Yeah, I'm super fortunate because there's been quite a few. But my favorite was a fitness company in Florida. They were um, absolutely killing it. It's COVID. Nobody can go to the gym, and they go from doing like a million a year to 15 million a year, literally with a blink of an eye. And the entrepreneur, and she is an entrepreneur that owned the company. She's a true entrepreneur, absolutely brilliant in her own right, incredibly intelligent, unbelievable at understanding what people need and need to hear, and not just telling people what they need to hear, but truly solving a problem for them, but understanding how to take the burden of it away, if that makes sense. She understood marketing and data and people in a fabulous way. However, she did not understand business or managing the business. And so she would go to her local bartender and be like, want a job? and so and so she ended up with 23 women, one man in this small office in downtown West Palm Beach. And what an exciting time, because they're just growing. I mean, 1 to 15 million, like literally in the blink of an eye. And so Shockwave came in, we understood what needed to get done. And over about 3 months, we reassessed the entire business. We shifted a lot of things. We turned it into about a 7-person company fairly quickly. We enacted great customer service, which is really what you need for a growing business with continuity. And we were able to scale to 100 million over 2 years. And it was, what a time to be alive, right? Like, COVID's winding down, and we were still able to scale and scale and scale and scale and scale. And so it was a wonderful experience. I have a lot of those, but that, for me, that was a lot of fun. It was an all female company. 90% of the vendors were also female. So it was just beautiful to see a bunch of women get together during a pandemic and just really crush in every aspect of marketing, operations, data,
Yeah.
finance. It was really a wonderful experience.
So yeah, I'm just going to say that one more time: 15 million to 100 million
In 2 years. Yeah.
in 2 years.
Yeah.
That is awe-inspiring results.
It's not that hard, actually. If you know how to make 10, you know how to make 100. If you know how to make 100, you know how to make 500. It's just, what are you willing to put in, and are you willing to pull the levers? Because there are a lot of levers that you can pull to expand, and a lot of, oh, Emma, like, no, it only works so far. You hit ceilings. You have to know how to break through those ceilings.
Yeah. And it's just a different lever with a little bit more oomph.
Right. It truly is. And in direct response and e-commerce, we sell online. We don't have to count on someone driving to our store. We can take it
Yep.
to anyone. Changing your marketing and just changing little tweaks so that it's region specific will increase your conversions for that region. You can do that nationwide, and then you can do that globally. And
Yeah.
so it's really not that hard once you know what to do.
Oh, well, absolutely. And in the fitness space, right, there's the lever for the woman who's just had a baby, right, a new mom and what she needs versus a woman who is my age and in menopause, right? The marketing and the advertising and how you trigger that
Right.
all within one geography, right? Where you get those avatars dialed in just right.
You've got hormones
And
that you can hit. You've got 5 different mechanisms to the same product.
Yeah.
That you can easily hit. And then you start with a quiz funnel.
Yeah.
So you know which mechanism to show them on your TSL or your VSL. So the sales page is literally shifted to what their needs and fears and desires are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Emma, if anything that we have talked about has piqued the curiosity of members of the audience, how do they learn more? How do they find you?
Sure. First way is probably my book, Scope, by Emma Rainville. You can get that on Amazon. The other thing you could do is shockwavesolutionsllc.com. You can contact us there. We have a contact me page. I have a beautiful, wonderful team of operators that watch the email. So if you have a question or need anything, you can write in, and they're usually pretty good about getting back to you in 24 hours.
That's awesome. And the links and all of the URLs and everything will be in the show notes, so it's easy for audience members to find. This conversation today was absolutely fabulous. Emma and I have a similar passion for operational excellence, but it really is the sole focus of what she does and how she does things. And that it really starts with the foundational idea of WAVE, which starts with that written vision and absolute focus, values-driven future, and understanding that you hire peeps that align with those values. And every step along the way it all ends with execution, because a brilliant idea means nothing if you can't get it done. We had a fabulous little conversation about the difference between goal and commitment and how we need to make those commitments, because those are the things we actually achieve. Goals really are just wishes. So Emma, this was an absolutely fabulous conversation. Thank you for joining me. And to my audience, you know the rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show.